Welcome back to another episode of How to Become an Obstacle Buster. I'm your host, Warren Wandling, the show that's dedicated to bringing leaders and entrepreneurs strategies, tips, and resources to overcome their obstacles, to build resilience, and achieve success. Hey, if this is your first time listening or you've been part of our community for a while, thank you for tuning in today. Before I introduce you to my guest today, I want to make sure that you're aware of a new resource to help you to be resilient. It's our private Facebook community called Leadership with Purpose. So you can either search in groups in Facebook and search Leadership with Purpose. And I'll also make sure that link is in the show notes as well. In our community, I share strategies, tips, and resources so you can step into less stress, greater profit, and experience the work you love. It's also a great place to connect with other like-minded leaders. So I look forward to seeing you in our community. Our sponsor for the show today is Audible. If you love listening to podcasts, I know you're going to love Audible like I do. It's a great way to be able to listen to books that you want to read this year. So if you're not already subscribed to Audible, let me get you a free book and a free 30-day trial. The book that I recommend is The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. By simply visiting warrenwandling.com/audible, you can grab your free book and your free 30-day trial to Audible. Again, that's warrenwandling.com/audible. WARRENWANDLING.com/AUDIBLE. I have a great guest with me today, Eric Shepard. As an entrepreneur, visionary, and author, Eric Shepard is an accomplished leader of international businesses and associations focused on talent assessments and success. For 18 years, Eric was the CEO of Question Mark, where he grew the organization's platform into a multi-million-dollar operation, delivering tens of millions of assessments per year. Eric has also led industry and standards initiatives to promote best practices for assessments, learning, and interoperability. He currently serves as chair of the IEEE Learning and Technology Standards Committee Working Group, which is developing recommended practices for defined competencies. Eric is also a captivating public speaker and currently serves as the executive director of the Talent Transformation Guild. Well, Eric, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Warren. It's great to be here.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. As you might know, on How to Become an Obstacle Buster podcast, we share different strategies, tips, and resources for leaders and entrepreneurs to overcome their obstacles, build resilience, and achieve success. So really to start that conversation today, as an entrepreneur yourself, visionary, author, and leader of international businesses, tell us about your career, kind of your journey to help our listeners understand some of your background.
Certainly, Warren. And also I'll share a few of my mistakes along the way that have kind of shaped my thinking, because I think your audience might find that helpful. And I follow your podcast and enjoy it. So thank you for that. So as you might tell from my accent, I was born and raised in the UK. I originally was going to be on a radio officer on a ship, but the shipping industry kind of decided they didn't need many radio officers, and I stumbled into the computer industry. And I was very, very lucky that I had a great manager, a great mentor, and the company I worked for provided great training. I was very, very lucky. And I started that quite early. I kind of started working for that company at 18, and after 3 years, wanted to do even more because I had no barriers in front of me. And I joined some other companies and ended up on a board of directors of a computer company, and was transferred into the US to take over a subsidiary. And that was an interesting part of the career, Warren, because I was, I think, about 28 years old, and I had to come into the US and let the existing president of the subsidiary go. Basically, I had to fire him. And he was kind of in his 50s or something. And when I turned up, he wasn't there. And I thought this was puzzling. And so I I checked in with my president back in the UK, and he said, well, just, make sure the bank account's okay and things like that. Well, it turned out that the bank account had been emptied and there was lots of money missing. And so my first few days and weeks on the job here in the US was kind of clearing up a mess there. But, we got that back on track and signed up some large contracts. And I got a lot of experience of traveling around the US initially and then North and South America to distribute hardware and software products. And then I thought, this is kind of an interesting thing. My core competencies are around releasing products. Let me try and find some products that I could manage myself. So I took on and started a new company and took on several products essentially as a manufacturer's rep. Some of the products were very successful, some were not. And there was a couple of lessons I learned there. One is that it's really difficult to come into an existing market with incumbent competitors and expect to take them out. And you could have a new whizzy product, but the existing competitors have kind of defined that market. So you need to change the dynamic somehow. And I was very lucky that Al Gore invented the internet just in time, and so it changed the dynamics of a market for one of the products I was representing. As a product called Question Mark, which was software for doing testing and assessment. And so then the incumbent players were kind of stuck in the past, and I encouraged them to be stuck in the past, and then was building this company which would do testing and assessment on the internet. And we realized that communicating with the customers was critical. So we'd signed up customers such as Dell and IBM and Microsoft. And I was thinking to myself, why are these people buying this product? Because I'd taken so much rejection on the DOS product and the Windows product and the Macintosh product. Why were they buying this internet product? And it was critical just to sit down with them and say, I love it that you love the product. What are the reasons you chose this product over an alternative solution? And at those times, it was pre-COVID, it's 20 or 30 years ago, and they carefully and kindly explained to me why they preferred it. And it was wide area distribution. So we didn't have to send floppy disks to people. And so that business prospered. And I found the challenge with being a manufacturer's rep is you could get stuck in mediocrity, in that if you were super successful, the owner of the intellectual property would kind of take you out and run their own distribution. And if you were unsuccessful, well, that wasn't fun for anyone. And so you kind of stuck in this narrow band of mediocrity. You could never be super successful. You could only really fail. So I really wanted to get involved in something where we had some control over the intellectual property and the feature set, etc. So I merged my company at the time with this company, Question Mark. And then it was kind of growing a company from with all sweat equity. We didn't take on any equity, and growing the company through good times and bad, through kind of 2001, which was a challenge, and other challenges, some tragedies that beset people within the company, and having to provide leadership through those different dramas. And I think one of the lessons I learned there was that change is a really good business condition. If you spot change and you can work out how to leverage your specific value proposition into a market during change, you will be better off. So some people in the middle of change will lament that it was never this way. And those are the people generally get stuck in the past and left behind. But if you could say, well, this is how things are changing, so that probably means this. So I'm sure you've found that, Warren, where using Zoom and using other tools out there for conferencing can enable you to do your business, and it enables many other people to do their business. Those people that are lamenting, saying, oh, I can't travel to do public speaking, or I can't travel to meet the people that I counsel, they're going to struggle. So when you see a change, it's got to be seen as an opportunity. And then just to kind of complete the story to the present day, I realized that I was living a Groundhog Day, and we built the company to about 150 people. We had great recurring revenues, great growing revenues, but it was kind of feeling like Groundhog Day. So the question then for me was, well, how do I kind of exit this and leave the company still prospering? Because it was very reliant on me as a leader. And so we decided to take on private equity in order to recruit some professionals for CEO, for chairman, CFO, and that let me exit the business gracefully. And then I took a deep breath after relinquishing those operational responsibilities and said, what do I want to do when I grow up? And part of it, having been in the assessment business, was I wanted to understand mindset and skill set and work out how that supports business outcomes. How does it support success? And that then came Talent Transformation, the book. And then out of the book came Talent Transformation Guild, which is kind of a resource for leaders and entrepreneurs that are looking at change, whether it's in technology or any others, to determine how that will affect the people and the processes and the tasks being performed, and how to kind of lead the business through change.
Yeah, really fascinating background, Eric, within your business journey, but seeing how kind of it definitely, builds and grows from all of your experiences. And I love the statement that you used about change. Certainly in the day that we are living in now, with being within COVID and the impact of just how it's impacted businesses, that a pivot, when we first was impacted with COVID, pivot was something that with like some companies were thinking they just need to make one simple change, but I think that's a constant in reference to being aware of that pivot. And I loved how you connected the change, seeing it as an opportunity. So instead of lamenting, look in that what the opportunity, what that change causes to be helped to continue growing the business. Do you find that the business, the clients that you're connecting with, are they adapting to that ability to be able to continue to change?
Yes, absolutely. One organization that I'm an advisor to was a distributor of hardware and software, and there was a period when hardware and software sales at the beginning of the pandemic dropped through the floor. I mean, the sales really dropped off. But then they very quickly worked out schools needed to buy a lot of computers. And so they repositioned to make sure that they would provide all the services that a school might want, for things like laser etching for the identity of the school, or imaging so that students didn't access inappropriate things via the internet. So they would do these laptop imaging. And then as they also realized that there's a lot of AV requirements for people like lawyers and doctors. And so kitting out conference rooms, doing a real professional high-end audio visuals for conference rooms would be a good way to go. So it's just one example of how an organization could have just lamented that somebody's stealing my lunch. Someone's lunch isn't available, to wait a minute, there's opportunities here in this COVID crisis.
So what is the greatest obstacle your clients encounter?
I think it's communicating with customers when they're used to one methodology and they've had to switch to another methodology. So the idea of going to having a meal, having a shared experience, sitting in a conference room where you could physically see people and you could get the mood. So if you sit in a meeting with 10 people in a room, you get a sense of the room. When you sit in a virtual conference room and you've got 10 people, it's difficult to kind of get a sense of the room. So it needs different communication skills, and scaling that up within the organization to say, how do we learn what the most appropriate skills are to use in virtual meetings, and how can we ensure that everybody in the organization can develop those skills.
So within that virtual meeting, the different skills, what's one of the skills that you find that's really important for leaders to be able to sharpen, or making sure that they understand the importance of that one specific skill?
Let me go a little beyond that. So I think
Okay.
one activity is to have daily calls with people,
Mm,
because you might not feel there's anything to check in about. But if you let it go for too many days, you'll find that people working from home might get stuck. And by just having a daily call, even if it's only 15 minutes, shorter or longer, and just say, how you doing? How's the family doing? It must be difficult doing this kind of work at home, but we support you. Is there anything? So offering that psychological support, because
mm,
people have so many fears, and these fears can consume their thinking. So instead of thinking about their work, they're thinking about, can I pay the rent? Is the company still going to be in business? Are my colleagues still going to be there? Are my colleagues really working? Do my colleagues think I'm working? So there's
mm.
all these kind of thoughts that might consume someone's frontal lobe thinking. Well, to encourage them to relax, to say it's okay. We're all going through this. We just have to learn new skills, and we have to learn new ways of communicating. So I think so there's the activity, regular communications, and not always in groups. I mean, groups have
Hmm.
a place, but having those one-on-ones and demonstrating empathy for what's going on in someone's personal life.
And when you, I know this conversation's been circling, like, not to do all calls by Zoom, but actually physically just call them, pick up the phone and call. Is that what you're also prescribing, is just a phone call?
Yes, I mean, I think whatever makes sense
Hmm.
culturally for the organization. So in some cases that may be the preferred method, or may not be. So, for instance, if an employee is doing a task which requires intense concentration, and you don't kind of want to break that concentration with an interrupt of a phone call, and you might want to encourage them to shut off their notifications whilst they're on a deep thinking task, such as designing a building. You've probably got to
Hmm.
do intense thinking. But if you're a constantly interrupt driven, so you're in customer service, well, someone's used to being constantly interrupted, and they can switch from what they were just doing to having a phone call to switching back to what they're doing. So it depends on the tasks involved.
So what was a key strategy that contributed to you in building your business?
I think understanding the customer was number one, and secondly was understanding the customer. The more you understand the problem that a customer has, the more you understand the vocabulary they use it, then the better. So an example of this, Warren, would be I had sold a system into a large financial services company in the northeast of the United States, and I went along, and they'd already bought it. And they said to me, Eric, you would do well to read about Donald Kirkpatrick and the four levels of evaluation. And I thought, I never heard of Donald Kirkpatrick. I never heard of the four levels of evaluation. Whatever it is, it's got some gem in there. So I went away and read the book, and then I understood the problems that they were grappling with. On the next meeting, I could help them use particular features of the software. They then became a great reference for us. They wrote case studies for us, because they realized, one, we understood their problem, and because we understood their problem, we could match the solution that they needed.
I'm really curious, what's the fourth industrial revolution, and why should leaders care?
So the fourth industrial revolution, that the expression, the title was brought to us by the chairman of the World Economic Forum. I've forgotten his name now, Klaus, but he's kind of a brilliant. He's originally an engineer by training, but now is the chairman of the World Economic Forum, and he wrote a book. I think it's called The Fourth Industrial Revolution, that recognized that technology and different technologies are coming together and changing the way we work. So it's not just one thing, it's multiple things. So if we think of a drone is reliant on batteries, so more efficient batteries and lighter weight batteries. It's reliant on materials, new types of lightweight materials so that it can fly more easily. It's reliant on AI so that it can adjust its different propellers and thrust systems based on the wind and the environment that it's flying in. And then it relies on effective communication back to the base station, and it relies on good user interface for somebody to fly that drone. So now, where somebody might be in the past climbing a tall chimney to inspect that it is in a good shape and it's not in danger of collapse, now we can reskill them to learn how to fly a drone to do that inspection. And the same thing, we could use drones for inspecting sewers, and we can do it more efficiently. And so it's this combination of technologies that are changing the tasks that need to be performed. And we're entering a period of exponential change. And some people will deny that it's exponential. The more work I do, the more I feel it is. And AI, we some of us experience AI in different ways. It might be through a chatbot with a supplier, or a chatbot with a customer, or supplying a chatbot for a customer, or it might be talking to Alexa in the morning to turn our lights on and play some music. So these technologies we've got the kind of the foundation and the building blocks in place. And now, as we enter this new phase, I believe we'll see a lot of entrepreneurs bringing these technologies together that will change the very way we work, the very way we play and experience life.
So from that, the new changes that we're moving towards, going back to that question, the topic we were talking about being looking for change and finding the opportunity, is that what the leaders should be embracing, knowing that that's change and finding opportunity within the fourth industrial revolution?
Exactly. So the fourth industrial revolution, to a certain extent, is providing the technology and the tools. So for leaders to say, how is this technology and tools, how is that going to change my business? And how do I be a leader in order to do that? So if you're running a restaurant, it might be, well, I need to have a touchless ordering system. The idea of robots, by the way, in restaurants are probably some time away, because waiters, waitresses, and cook staff do quite sophisticated tasks. Just giving some examples, if we look at Airbnb, they have a greater worth now than the major hotel chains. Somebody changed the way apps have impacted booking a hotel room. The same with Uber and Lyft. So we will see that business models are going to be changed because of technology. So for a leader to say, is technology going to influence my supply chain? So how I accept things in services or products? How am I going to add value with technology? And how am I then going to do downstream for outreach, marketing, sales, customer service? And how am I going to improve the experience of the customer using technology? So we'll see these the value propositions change, either because of downstream or upstream, and it's a matter of thinking ahead and being creative and maybe being inspired by other people that have changed their businesses from a hotel to an app, for instance.
So what do leaders need to understand about creating new jobs for a post-pandemic world?
I think a key thing to understand is that tasks are going to change. The things we do are going to change because the repetitive things that were done in the past are going to be automated. So we can see, there's many examples. The factory floor, we see robots, but in the office, we see a remote process automation. So the repetitive tasks eventually be handed off to automation. So that leaves humans with more human and creative kind of tasks. So to prepare for the future, we want to ensure that we're encouraging creativity and innovation. Prior to the pandemic, it was very much about efficiency. How do we get the minimal number of people to do the maximum amount of work? Post-pandemic, we're going to be looking at larger bench strength. So people might appear not to be busy, but they might be experimenting and innovating. So the kind of skills we're going to be looking for to complete these new kind of tasks are things like creativity, communications, conflict resolution, the all of the skills related to diversity and inclusion in order to encourage that creativity, so to improve your value proposition to satisfy whichever clients you're looking to engage.
Very fascinating. So, as the author of Talent Transformation, you share with your leaders some great strategies. In fact, 12 fundamental factors in building long-term success. What are some of the points that leaders should be aware of to help build long-term success within their organization?
Great question, Warren. Thank you. The challenge I found as a CEO is that I didn't feel I had enough visibility on the talent aspects of my business. So we had 150 people in the business, but what did we have and what did we need? And it always seemed to be very conversational, which is one way to understand the talents that are existing within the business. But I also wanted to get a bit more about what is going to impact. And so after I'd left the business, I started interviewing friends that I developed over the years. I had in my home dinners for CEOs and for founders and chief human resource officers. I'd travel to meet people, and we were trying to come up with a model that would demonstrate to leaders what really impacted their business outcomes. And that's how we developed the talent transformation pyramid. And it kind of shows the combination of what supports what within a business. So at the very top, we've got business outcomes. So the outcomes are related to numbers. So it might be increased profit, increased revenue, increased customer satisfaction, increased employee satisfaction, or improved engagement. So there's some quantifiable number that the business is trying to achieve. So how do we know if we're ready for that? How do we know we're ready to perform? A lot of that is about mission, vision, purpose. So we've got everybody aligned into what we're going to be doing. It's about doing an effective SWOT analysis, so we know what our strengths and weaknesses are, and we know what the opportunities and threats are in the marketplace, and that we get buy-in from our team to do what needs to be done. And there's other aspects of readiness to do with resources and planning, but I was focused on the talent issues and talent transformation issues. And so when the team buys in, you're then around thinking about competencies. And competencies, you can have behavioral style competencies. So you want people in the team that will be results oriented or customer service oriented. And so it comes down to the culture of the team and what are their values and preferences. And then there's the capabilities of the team, what knowledge, skills, abilities. And when I looked at this, I realized that most companies have about 5 to 15 behavioral competencies defined for their organization. But on the capabilities, they might have 100 or 1,000 or thousands. You know, a large organization might have thousands of tasks being performed, and they determine the knowledge, skills, abilities required to perform those tasks. But you can have all of that if you don't provide things like psychological safety, if you don't provide the right incentives, if you don't provide the right tools and information, your team won't perform. You might have the best ever people, but without that managerial support, without that tools, information, incentives, they could go off the rails. And so then what is it what's the core to us as people that will engage with that kind of environment to perform at high levels? So what's our personality traits, our motives, our preferences? And how can we layer on top of that a layer of social and emotional intelligence in order to communicate effectively? And more we are communicating together as teams in the second industrial revolution, if we were assembling a car, we didn't really have to communicate with others very much. But now, to actually create things, we do have to communicate, and there will be conflict, and we do have to work out how to do that. So how do we learn those skills of social emotional intelligence, and how could we assess them to kind of help people understand how the outside world might see them and how they might see their strengths? So how do we assess that to help people learn and improve and engage with the team?
Yeah, really fascinating, Eric. Certainly from being able to identify how to transform the talent, the team that you're currently working with, in those competencies around behavior traits like EQ, EI, as well as their behavior traits. So is that's where you do the initial assessment within the team with different assessments?
So what I'm trying to do is help people understand what's happening with the fourth industrial revolution, how their
Mhm.
businesses might change and the business models. So I don't really get down into individual coaching or using these assessment tools. We've spoken about using DISC, which is an excellent
Mhm.
tool, and Strength Finders. And I would encourage people to, if they haven't done the Clifton Strength Finders, that they do it just on their own, or they engage a consultant to help them understand it. It's I found it incredibly useful. In fact, when I stepped down from being CEO, one of the first assessments I did was the Clifton Strength Finders to actually understand myself a little better. So but when you're constructing a team, there's multiple tensions there. So you want a diverse team. You want a team that represents your customers. You want to include people. So you might have people that have never worked together. How do you bring them together as a team? So there's it's the importance of a manager, a leader, a supervisor to bring that team together. So they can leverage the synergies between those people. And part of that might be to promote understanding of the team. So they might do something like a DISC assessment or colors assessment, or uh, the Lumina does a great assessment. So then people say, oh, that's why you and I keep having an issue, because I'm a red and you're a yellow and we don't get along naturally. But you know what? We need a diverse team. So, it's important. We're both making an important contribution here. So instead of getting frustrated with each other, let's get frustrated with the problem and focus on the problem. So there's the team building exercises, and certainly assessments can help underpin that learning process.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you for that explanation. Excellent book. Highly recommend. Any of our listeners have not read Eric's book, and I'll make sure that I include that link in the show notes as well.
Well, the simplest URL to go to is talenttransformation.com, and it could be talenttransformation.com/book. And that will take you to all of the information about the book with a synopsis and resources and diagrams. And people are also very welcome to reach out to me personally if they want to. So the email address, I'm going to give you the simple and short one, which is
Okay.
Eric at talenttransformation.com. So ERIC at talenttransformation.com. And I try and answer all my emails within a day or two. So, and I welcome questions. It helps me keep fresh and keep alert.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. I believe that success leaves clues, and one of those clues are the authors and books that leaders have read or currently reading. So, what are some authors that really have influenced you in your business?
On the website, I think, Warren, I have about 80 books that I've read, and each one of them has I've taken away a gem from. And so certainly encourage people to check out the list if they want to. I think some of the pivotal books in my career, one was From Good to Great.
Mm,
It's an oldie but goodie.
right.
7 Habits of a Highly Effective Person or Leader.
Uh huh.
That one was pivotal. I think more recently, I've been reading There's a great British, The War on Normal People by Andrew Yang, that talks about the issues of how jobs will be displaced, and so I love those kind of economic review books. There's another one, the businesses of the future, which talks about how value propositions will be changed given the technologies. And I think it's that book also deals with how the Chinese have an advantage in artificial intelligence because they have less data restrictions than the US has as far as people giving out personal data. And so, and data is kind of the fuel for artificial intelligence to learn from. So that's just a sample of them.
Oh, interesting. Very good. Thank you. So what does the future hold, Eric? Are you working on any special projects?
Well, one of the projects that I'm working on, which is more a giving back kind of project, is I'm the chairman of the IEEE Defining Competencies Working Group. So kind of a long title. But the challenge that I see is that we have businesses complain that when students from schools or colleges come into the workplace, that they're not really ready to work, and that there's a lot of onboarding required to help people be prepared for work. And so then we say, okay, well, how is business trying to communicate the competencies that they need so that schools, colleges, universities have an opportunity to create those within their education systems? And sadly, the businesses struggle to articulate these competencies. And even if they could, they then struggle with a communication tool. So there are several initiatives going on that will help alleviate this problem by having a marketplace of defined competencies. And then there will be a value-added system on top of that, which it will help people pick and choose the competencies that are appropriate, that will then inform job descriptions, will inform training, learning and development, will inform credentialing, micro-credentialing, education, etc. So the piece that I'm doing is just making sure that competencies get well defined, but there's a much bigger ecosystem here. And I think within 5 or 10 years, we will see dramatic changes. We will see the standard degrees being disrupted. We will see smaller chunks of learning being recognized with a credential or micro-credential, and then having these credentials stacked so that somebody could say, I didn't go to college, I didn't get a degree, but look at all of this competencies that I've demonstrated through these credentials. I'm actually more experienced and very suited to this role. So it does mean that we're disrupting the status quo, but it will lead us to a much healthier future.
Oh, fascinating, Eric. That sounds like a whole nother podcast in itself in reference to going deeper in that. Love to explore that.
Well, I'd love to. I mean, you're a great gentleman, and I love your work. If I can help in any way, you just let me know.
All right, great. Thank you. I know that you mentioned earlier some of the email as well as the your website. When our listeners wanted to reach out to you, is there any other website that you'd like to refer, or other avenues for them to be able to connect?
I think those are the two primary ways to connect. And within the website, there's links to other resources that would be potentially helpful. And if somebody says, I'm looking for this kind of thing, then I'd be happy to respond and give them URLs that are appropriate in context.
Great. Well, thank you again for sharing your strategies, tips, resources, helping our listeners to overcome their obstacles to achieve success.
You're very welcome, Warren. It's been a great pleasure.
Well, until next time, this is your host, Warren Wandling, saying, be resilient